the most important advice that I ever got was that all of the things I consider disadvantages are advantages to somebody else. Like me being young is one of my biggest advantages, I believe. I'm able to speak to what the younger demographic wants and what we're
Mm-hmm.
looking for and how we're feeling about the current product.
Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Hey, Larson.
And you're watching Tom Talks Rubbish.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talk Rubbish, and today I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm joined by Nicole from Demo Divas and ADHD Divas, both on bodyslam.net, and correct me on the last one, is it Fightful Overbooked?
Yep, correct. Yes. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Thank you for coming on. I was surprised because I'm still at the stage where when someone says, I'll come on, I'm like, wait, what? Okay, cool. So if we take this back to the beginning, where does your wrestling fandom begin?
Okay, this is actually my favorite story. I started watching the night after WrestleMania 30. I remember the first segment I ever saw was when Rollins turned on the rest of the Shield. And then after that,
Really?
yeah, I just dove right in. And after that, I was hooked when I saw Paige and AJ Lee. It was Paige's debut. She defeated AJ that exact night, and I was thrilled, and I was forever engaged in wrestling.
So that's quite interesting because normally when I interview people, it comes up that they got in either in the Hulkamania era or the Attitude Era. So what was it that drew you in what is now termed as the reality era?
Yeah, so at that time I think I was like 10 or so, and I was probably like 5th grade or something like that. So everybody around me was pretty much like talking about wrestling, and I had gotten ads for it on like my TV, and I was like, "Oh, what's this? Let me just check it out." And then I just tuned in, and I actually ended up watching back all like Divas era stuff. I actually have my Divas title. I keep it in my
Ooh.
I keep it in my little drawer over here for whenever I do shows or anything like that. It always helps me remember why I started doing this stuff. So I've always been a huge fan of women's wrestling. That's where I got my start.
Okay. So a lot to unpack there. So as someone that didn't actually that's a question for later, but you brought up women's wrestling there. With it being probably a lot more well produced. I don't know the right word, but like basically back in the day, you had bra and panties matches, you had gravy bowl matches, matches that, and this is just my opinion. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. That maybe didn't show women in the best light.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, for sure.
Do you think if you had begun watching wrestling in say the Attitude Era or any other era, you would have got into it as much?
Honestly, I really don't believe I would have. I feel like maybe this is a hot take, but so much of what made like the reality era, as you called it, reality was how current it was in all of its programming. So if I would have started to watch like all of the Attitude Era stuff, I wouldn't have been able to see myself be portrayed as I wish I would have in like an AJ Lee. Whenever I look at stars like AJ Lee, Bianca Belair, Naomi, Sasha Banks, I see myself in them, and I wouldn't have been able to see myself in those women back then because of they weren't able to show who they were fully or even able to expose what their personality was.
Fair enough. But what is one thing from, say, a previous era? Because normally I ask what is something that someone during their gap year had missed that they went back and watched and wished, oh, I wish I was a fan. But what is something from a previous era that you missed out on that you're like, oh, I wish I was a fan during then?
Oh my God. I always talk about this, but TNA Aces and Eights, Bully Ray and TNA. I don't know what enthralled me so much, but I was just in love with aces and eights. I don't understand why. It was like aces and eights, beautiful people, and Gail Kim. I was in love with from TNA. I wasn't watching at that time, but I guess I really resonated with the stuff that they were doing and how rebellious aces and eights was. I'm not a fan of Bully right now, but back then I really liked his work.
Yeah, I can't say that I blame you based on his, at time
Yeah.
of recording, less than savoury comments.
Yeah. Yep. Oh Jesus. Bully.
For those
Oh
of you that
God.
don't know, this is being recorded because it will be in the can for a while. This is being recorded the week after his comments on John Moxley's return.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, Bully. Sometimes it's
yeah,
better to just be quiet.
I agree. So if we continue in your wrestling journey, when does the point come that you're like, I want to start doing some work in the wrestling media, quote unquote?
Oof. Okay. So I actually did take a gap year in wrestling from, oh, I want to say around a little bit after the draft, the first draft, a little bit after like 2016,
Mm-hmm.
2017-ish of SmackDown and Raw. I took a little bit of a break after that up until right around the beginning of the quarantine. So once quarantine happened, so right around the WrestleMania that took place in the Performance Center, I started watching again. Um,
36, right?
Yep. Yep. So when I started watching, I was catching back on a whole bunch of content because I hadn't seen any AEW stuff until like May of this year. So I was pretty late on AEW.
Ooh.
But I was watching a bunch of like wrestling media content. So like Fightful, Wrestle Talk, Quizlemania, Parts Unknown, just to try to like get all the knowledge that I missed. And then I was like, I really like this stuff. So I just started to consistently watch Fightful's post shows and all of their stuff. And I made friends with some of the hosts over there. And I just kind of began to build connections. And I became friends with Kate, who does the Sour Grap show and the
Mm-hmm.
SmackDown show. And she invited me on when they did the Distraction women's takeover. It was me, Carissa, Allie, and it was the twins. So it was a great time to do that. And then I was brought on to Body Slam the same day. So that was about November 4th, I believe was that date. And ever since then, my life has done a 180. Everything has kind of just become wrestling. So that's where that started, not too long ago.
Was that the plan, quote unquote?
Oh, the plan was for me to start doing this when I was in college. I'm a senior right now in high school. And I was like, okay, when I get to college, I think I can do like wrestling, journalism stuff just to make a little bit of side money. I was like, maybe this is what I'm going to do. And then it kind of just so happened that like my life just like, okay, we're going to do it for you right now. So now I just like got a head start before heading into college, which was actually the right thing to do. So
Mm-hmm. Do you? There's an interesting take there. Do you wonder what your life would be like if you'd waited and maybe passed up on some of these opportunities?
honestly, I feel like everything happens at the perfect time for me. I feel like that's how I always like view my life, is like the universe always has a plan for me. And with all of my college applications and stuff, this has actually been like the perfect distraction for me. I have another place where I can put all of my energy and effort into.
Yeah.
So it was really like the perfect timing. And I feel like I got so many opportunities and that I just jumped in at the right time that I was kind of able to do all the stuff that I've really wanted to accomplish so far. Like I just booked my first Impact interview and I literally lost my mind. So everything's happening really fast, but I'm really excited.
Do you sometimes think, oh, I wish I could slow down and enjoy this more, or do you like it being that fast paced?
I honestly think I'm underachieving all the time. That's one of my major issues is I always deal with like imposter syndrome. And I've been kind
Yeah.
of open about this as well, is that I feel like I'm not doing as much as I should right now. But at the same time, I always have to put in perspective that like, okay, I am 17 years old. Let me be careful about the responsibilities that I'm taking on and be mindful of my mental health and how much energy and effort I'm putting into this stuff. So I've kind of just tried to limit myself when it comes to opportunities, kind of begin to weigh out pros and cons of doing things and working with certain people. I'm slowing down a little bit and just being more I'm picking and choosing more when it comes to opportunities, which I feel like is better for me.
When was the point that you felt comfortable then saying, okay, this isn't for me right now, but this is for me. Maybe I'll pick this up in the future.
at the beginning I felt like I really had to prove myself, and I feel like that was a hurdle that I had to get over. Was
Preach.
Yeah, I felt like I had to show everybody like my worth, and that I wasn't just here because I could talk a little bit. I was pumping out articles. I was doing 20 articles a day for Body Slam. I was going insane until the point where I started to get recognition for my work, and I was like, if people that I respect are realizing this and they're giving me respect as well, then I feel like I should give myself that same respect and not have to put as much pressure on me anymore. And I think that was about the month and a half point, I want to say, when I became co-managing editor at Body Slam, which I no longer am anymore, but it was an amazing opportunity.
Fair enough. Did you worry though that because I've been through this recently because I'm trying to schedule my interviews more to my lifestyle instead of fitting around my guests? Like, did you worry that if you stopped saying yes, the opportunities would start drying up?
Not really. My whole idea for how I live my life was to create my own opportunities. So if opportunities aren't coming to me, I still know that I have the skills and the knowledge to kind of create those opportunities for myself. I launched my own project called Wrestling with Whiteness, and I've been able to get more opportunities from my own project than working with other organizations and other outlets that I've been really, really proud of to work with. But I'm able to do that myself now, and that's due to my personal branding and being able to create those opportunities for myself.
Okay. So if we move on to those opportunities, what was your first sort of, this sounds so cheesy, but big break in the wrestling media? You said it was
Uh
that podcast, correct?
Yeah, well, technically it was that podcast, and I got brought on to Body Slam. But if I'm looking at my first big news break, I interviewed Shane Taylor Promotions, and I broke that his contract was up on January 1st, and that wasn't exclusive. It got picked up by a couple outlets, and that felt like it was the first milestone for me. So I think it was either one of those two. It depends what you consider like a big break.
So what I mean by big break, just to clarify for my viewers, is like what is was like your first big opportunity to be a content creator in.
Okay, yeah. Then it was definitely that distraction podcast. I feel like I got to show enough of myself there, but it was enough for people to understand who I was and to kind of set the beginning foundation of my platform.
Okay. So what is your ultimate goal with your platforms then?
Oh yeah. I always think about that and I always try to understand what it is, but I don't really know what my end goal is. I feel like I'm just gonna try to ride the wave until I find the opportunity that is perfect for me to settle down in. I feel
Hmm.
like if I set a limit on what I want, like I have a bunch of goals behind me for things I want to accomplish, and I feel like I focus more on the milestones I want to achieve as I go on my journey instead of just focusing on I want to become this. And I feel like when I do that, I get very trapped. And if I don't achieve this, I get really upset and I get like really angry at myself. So I just set minor goals that I want to achieve over the next year.
Can you tell us some, or would you rather
Yeah.
keep that private?
Um, I have get an AEW wrestler interview, a WWE wrestler interview, hit 3,000 Twitter followers, which I'm very close to. I had do a show with Sean Ross Sapp on here, get an Impact interview. I took those down. Launch Wrestling with Whiteness is on here, but I have to take that down pretty soon.
Hmm.
Um, Pick the brain of John Alba. This is probably going to happen pretty soon. I want to do a show with him. I actually want to cut a promo. Funny enough,
Oh,
I wanted to manage wrestlers for a little while. I still think I want to do that eventually, but those are some of my wrestling goals. I have an interview with Big Swole too that I have on my list, which I think will happen soon as well.
what is the goal that you were like you had up there that you were like that's never gonna happen, but
Oh,
it did
it's
happen?
that WWE interview. I think that's a next year interview. I mean, a next year goal, but it could happen this year. I'm not too
Hmm.
sure.
But then, what is one that you've taken down off the wall that you were like that would never happen, but then now you're like, how the hell did I get to do that?
Oh, it was that Impact interview. I took that down like yesterday. I took a video of me doing it. I was on the phone with my friends, and I was just doing it, and I was crying because it felt so surreal for me to do something like that, especially so early in the year. When I set these goals on December 31st, and to
Hmm.
complete that in my first month was insane. To be able to take down so many of my goals, one, two, three, four of these already in the first month is crazy.
Is the idea then to have a clean, I suppose the word would be wall
Yeah, yeah,
by the
complete.
end of the year?
Yeah, that's the goal. I also have some personal ones over here as well, but the goal is to have it all gone. And I like to keep it up because as my video, I always have it in all of my videos. So as the videos go on, people can see them start to come off, and it's like a sense of pride for me.
Yeah. You brought up like imposter syndrome there. How do you convince yourself that you're not an imposter, quote unquote?
Oh, yeah. I think it's really hard. I think sometimes I just have to recognize that if I didn't work as hard as I did, I wouldn't have what I have right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of the success that I've achieved so far, whether it be big or small in other people's eyes, it's amazing to me. And I never would have expected this to happen, especially so fast. Especially, I'm like, I think 20 followers away from 2.5 thousand followers. And that was insane to me when I was at like 500 followers in November, which was
Mm.
crazy. I feel like if all of these people recognize that I'm something, then I feel like I don't need to be an imposter anymore. I still struggle with it though, but like that's why I have a bunch of peers and cool people around me to tell me that I'm not an imposter in the space.
Okay. So are you, and this might sound like a very obvious question, but are you thankful to those that have taken a chance on you? Like
Oh,
Kate and please remind me of some others because my memory does not work
Kate,
very well.
Cassidy, I would even go the Grab City boys. They were always so welcoming of me. Jeremy Lambert just brought me on to Fightful Overbooks, and that was an amazing experience. Sean Ross Sapp has been so guiding for me, and he's always there to help me answer questions. We did a show together. Haley and Kylie, my co-hosts for ADH Divas and Demo Divas, they were always so supportive of me. All of the wrestlers I've gotten the chance to interview at the end of 2021, I actually made a video thanking everybody. And it was like a 7-minute long video of me just saying thank you to a bunch of people I've gotten to work with and talk to. I also have a Billy Starks brand shirt on.
Oh
So
yeah.
Billy Starks as well. Yeah, she's one of my close friends. So her as well.
I I wouldn't be able to do one of them videos because the way my brain works, I'm like, I'd forget someone and then I'd feel bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I sat down for like 2 hours and I was like, let me go through all of the videos I've done so I can thank every single person that I've done a video with, every single person that I've talked to and has impacted me. And it was a really long video, but yeah.
Oh wow. So if we move on to like your current consumption of wrestling, what are you required to watch for work? What and then what would you be watching if say you were just I don't want to say a regular high school senior, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Basically what I'm required to intake is AEW, Rampage and Dynamite, pay-per-views, Rampage, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and pay-per-views for WWE is basically
Oof.
what I'll
A
cover.
little bit of everything.
Oh yeah. And then on my free time, the stuff that I would like to watch is regular ROH stuff. Funny enough, I love the current ROH stuff. I feel like I'm
Mhm.
crazy, but I'll sit and I'll watch random ROH videos. I love Josh Woods and Rhett Titus and Jonathan Gresham, so I'll constantly watch their videos. Whenever I want to just like intake some random wrestling, I'll just put on some ROH Pure Rules matches, TV title matches. I love to watch that stuff. I'll also always go back. My boyfriend just recently got into wrestling, so we're
Oh
taking
yeah.
him through all the like AEW matches. I got a full like 2-page list from a bunch of like people on Twitter of matches to watch with him. So we're going through that as well. But yeah, I feel like I would be just intaking a whole lot of wrestling. Whenever I'm not watching wrestling, I watch MMA, specifically UFC. I don't know what it is, but I have a need for violence, I guess. On my free time, I like violence.
Okay. So, have you got to the point yet where, because a lot of the more seasoned content creators that I've spoken to, and again, that's not meant offensively,
Oh yeah, I get it. I get it.
like, they have said, I now can't watch wrestling on my free time. Have you got to that point yet?
I'm not there yet. I feel like it's going to take me a couple years to get there. I feel like I always watch wrestling so I can better my analysis of wrestling. Like my goal is to always get to the point where I can predict what somebody's going to do next in a match. I'll always test myself and do this. Like I'll watch an ROH match and I'll be like, he's about to hit a knee. He's going to
Meh.
punch him. He's going to drop his hand on the rope or something like that. Like I always try to predict what's coming next. So when eventually I want to do commentary, I'll be able to kind of analyze better and I kind of practice like I'm doing commentary. I feel like I just always watch this stuff as like practice. Like I'll go back and watch random pay-per-views I haven't seen. I'll go back and watch random WWE stuff from like the middle of like 2008 or something like that. Something random. Anything to like exercise my brain and give me something new.
So, what would your advice be to people that are wanting to be in your position but think, I'm too young, I'm inexperienced, etc.?
The most important advice that I ever got was that all of the things I consider disadvantages are advantages to somebody else. Like me being young is one of my biggest advantages, I believe. I'm able to speak to what the younger demographic wants and what we're
Hmm.
looking for and how we're feeling about the current product. So I'm able to, I was actually like a Stan Twitter account. Like I used to just regularly tweet about, I was a Sasha Banks Stan Twitter account, funny enough. So I used to just be that. And then eventually I just kind of evolved into having more, I think, dignified opinions on wrestling. I
Yeah.
kind of take my platform more seriously now. I'm more aware of the things that I'm saying, how I'm portraying myself. Would I be okay if a future employer saw this, specifically somebody in wrestling? I'm thinking about all of those things now. And that's the first piece of advice that I would give is to be careful about the content that you're producing. And then secondly, you just kind of eventually have to take that leap of faith. I would just start by practicing talking to yourself in the mirror. I used to be a public speaker, so I can talk all day long. I used to speak at rallies. I held concerts. I did basketball games. Like I was always speaking. So I'm super used to this, but that's always a hurdle that people are going to have to get over is one, being okay with talking to themselves and hearing themselves talk, because I hate transcribing my own interviews, but I hear myself talk a lot. And
Preach. One thing
yeah.
I hate is like watching myself back in the edit.
Yep. Oh my God. I hate it so much. Jesus Christ, I have to hear myself multiple times when I'm transcribing. So get comfortable with hearing yourself talk. And then also get comfortable with having other people hear your opinions and not agree with them. Because that was one of the hurdles that I also had to get over was being okay with people not agreeing with what I'm saying.
Hmm. So, and then with you mentioned there being quite young and being able to relate to the younger crowd. Which product do you feel at the moment does relate to the younger crowd probably the best?
Oh, it's definitely AEW. I like
AEW Shield.
uh no, I actually have my belt. Oh my God. I keep all of my belts in my drawer. But I remember when I went to AEW Boston, I think, and I
Hmm.
got my belt signed. This is like Nyla and Vicky's signatures on this belt. But I remember when I was going to the meet and greet and I was looking at the crowd, I saw how many young people were there compared to when I went to Raw in my hometown. And it was such a different demographic. Like
Yeah.
we see so many like of that 18, well, I would say even like 15 to like 30-ish demographic now that's so important for wrestling because we're like the next generation of wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And I think that AEW has done really well in capturing them. They know what we want. Like we want the violence, we want the good storytelling, the promo ability, the engaging characters. So
Hmm. So, but one thing I'm always curious to find out from people that have to watch Raw and stuff is would you if like you weren't required to?
yes, I I
Okay.
all, I don't like it all the time, but I think it's interesting to see how that company has developed and where they are now. And I will always watch for Bianca Belair. Bianca and Sasha, I will always watch for, no matter how bad the product is. And I always will support my favorite wrestlers, my favorite performers over there. Um, but I don't always think that their product is good. I don't always like what they're doing. I really didn't like the Royal Rumble pay per view.
I've
But
not seen it, but
oh
from what I saw, I basically decided, you know what, I'm glad I cancelled my network when I did.
yeah, it's not worth the viewing, I don't think, unless you're gonna watch Beth and Edge versus Maurice and Miz, because that was the only match that I really liked on the card.
I heard that was really good.
Yeah, I love Maurice. I love the divas, so that's why I was excited for that. But I think it's always interesting to kind of just view what the company once was when I was younger
Yeah.
versus what it is now.
Do you think that wrestling on in WWE still gets the higher ratings because people are in a routine, whereas with
Yes.
AEW they don't because like one week they can be on a Saturday, one week they can be on because of like basketball and stuff.
Mm-hmm. one of the theories that I have about why WWE is so big still is about legacy viewers. I don't know if this is an actual term or if I'm making it up, but so many people watch because of the routine. They've been watching it since they were young. Their
Yeah.
families watched it together, so it's like they continue to watch because it's just a part of like the viewing like
Mm.
process, I guess. Like I still watch shows from when I was younger, like Disney Channel shows. I'll go back and
Yeah.
watch them, or if they were still on
Disney
air, I would
Plus
still
is
watch.
our friend.
Exactly. Yes. And same thing for like a show like Blackish that has been on forever. I'll still watch that because I watched it when I was younger. So I still
Yeah.
am like trained to still like like this product, and it was also like such a nostalgic thing for me when I was younger, so I still want to watch and engage with it because it connected to my childhood.
How do you think people can break that? We'll call it a nostalgia cycle.
I honestly don't think I know because I don't think I know how to break it. I only stopped watching and took my gap because wrestling wasn't cool in high school, and I was still so like insecure and everything like that. But
Hmm.
like now I don't care. I'm gonna do what I want. But before I only stopped watching because it wasn't cool. If wrestling like if wrestling wasn't around, I still feel like I would be clamoring for some sort of violence. So I feel like even if I don't like the product they're putting on, I still think I can like the matches enough. But I think the way to break it would be to just wean yourself off of it. A lot of my friends only watch like the highlights on YouTube or like stay up with WWE on social media, which I feel like if you're interested in doing that, that's another way to do it as well.
Yeah. So then, if we get into your content, which is demo divas and ADHD divas, correct? How
Mhm.
did that all come about then?
Yeah, so I actually had two. I technically still have one other show, but I had Fantasy Booking Friday with Carissa before that, which was a fantasy booking podcast, which was really fun. But I eventually met Kylie and Haley, and we kind of all just became like a super trio group. Like we're
Yeah.
like a best friend group, so it just feels like we're talking about wrestling with my best friends, and that's always fun. The idea for the name ADHD Divas or ADHD divas, people pronounce it different ways. It doesn't really matter. It was kind of
Yeah,
just
that was one thing I was like, I hope
it's
I'm not pronouncing it
you
wrong.
can pronounce it any way you want. Like we switched it up and we do both. Um, but when we came up with the idea, we really all were just like none of us can stay on topic. We were doing a production meeting for 4 hours because we couldn't stay on topic about what we wanted the podcast to be about. And we were
Hmm?
like, this is what this show needs to be about. So it just eventually became a 2 hour show where we just talk and make fun of each other and do funny cold opens. I ate a jalapeno pepper on the second episode. On the first episode, my friend Haley ate an onion. I've done TikTok dances. I've talked about sports that I don't know anything about. It's a very much of a variety show, but we still cover wrestling. Demo Divas actually was the original idea for our show, and it was
Hmm.
the second show that we did. Demo Divas I wanted to do because I wanted to do something about the female demographic, but it
Yeah.
eventually it was just like, okay, we'll just put a pause on it. So now we only cover women's wrestling on Demo Divas, and we actually rate the different companies on the booking of their women's division and their week, the past week that they've produced in women's wrestling. And that show's a lot of fun. We just did our first episode, and we talked a lot about the Royal Rumble and everything like that. But that show's really fun as well.
Hmm. So you brought up there that you and your friends go on a lot of tangents on ADHD divas, which
Yeah.
is the entire purpose of the show. How do you deal with like comments of people going, just tell us the news or get to the point? And then how do you balance those people that like your more comedic and personal sides?
What I always realize is I don't create the content for them. If they don't like the content that I produce, that's not my fault. I create the content that I know would make me happy to create. I'm not gonna force myself into a box and create content that other people would rather me create. So if I do that, I'm just gonna be unhappy and just making content to make content. So I always just prioritize the happy comments and the positive feedback and all of that stuff. I obviously like constructive criticism as well. But I don't I don't need it from everybody. I feel like the people I respect, I can take it from more so than people who are just on Twitter and don't do my job.
Hmm. Do you subscribe to the CM Punk theory then? Which was, I can't remember the exact tweet, but like, don't take criticism from people you wouldn't take advice from, essentially.
Yes, that's exactly what I subscribe to. Yeah. I feel like if you haven't walked in my shoes, then you won't understand what I'm trying to accomplish. So I'll always reach out to people like John Alba, Jeremy Lambert, Sean Rossap, even Cassidy,
Mhm.
to kind of get their opinions on what I'm doing because I know that they've been where I am and I know that I can trust their opinions.
Fair enough. Like, who is, and I don't want to put you on the spot then, but who is the person that you're like, okay, I've got this problem, I need to reach out to them, or I
Jeremy
need
Lambert.
this piece of advice.
It's
Uh,
Jeremy Lambert. 1,000,000% Jeremy. Me and Jeremy, I literally sent him I sent him an article, the first article I ever wrote. I was like, "Can you look at this and give me advice?" And ever since then, he's always been there for me whenever I have advice on something. It's also John Alba as well. If it's like a writing or news based question, I go to Jeremy. If it's content based or like branding, I go to John Alba.
Fair enough. So, as we move on to the podcast, we're not on the episode, not the podcast. I ain't got one of them yet. Uh, we're gonna go into a segment now that I call generic questions, which
Okay.
is essentially questions that I'm sure my guests get. If you guys have seen my video, you'll know my questions that my guests probably get asked on Twitter a lot, like their favorite match, their favorite pay per view, etc. And then now they can be like, "Look, I've answered this. Go watch this."
Yeah.
And it gets me more clicks. It gets that out of their hair. Everybody's happy, sort of thing.
Yes. Let's do it.
Favorite match of all time.
Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair at WrestleMania last year.
Why does that match speak to you so much? I
Oh my
think I
God.
know the answer, but I'm
I
gonna
watch
give
it
you the
once
floor.
a week. I watch that match once every week without fail. I need it in order to process my life. I cried when the match actually happened. I cried when Bianca won the Royal Rumble. It was just so amazing to see two women who look like me main event WrestleMania and have an amazing, memorable match at that. Whenever I show somebody a wrestling match, I go, "Have you seen Sasha versus Bianca?" And if they say no, I'm showing them the match right then and there. That's my favorite match ever.
What is your thoughts on, because during after that mania there was a lot of thoughts on Sasha wouldn't be crying, she's a badass, and Bianca wouldn't be crying, she's a badass. What is your thoughts on that?
Oh, no, let them cry. It was a historic moment. It was historic for everybody involved. I feel like they deserved all of the glory that they got. And if it takes tears, it takes tears.
I agree. Favorite pay per view of all time.
Ooh, that's such a hard question.
And can we exclude pay per views you've been at live, because that will be a question that I ask you in a minute.
Okay. I'll go. I'm not sure exactly what number this is, but it was Survivor Series when Dolph Ziggler defeated the Authority and Sting came out. I don't remember exactly what date it was.
I hate my wrestling memory sometimes, but I know
Yeah,
exactly what that was.
I feel like
2014.
there you go. That's exactly what it was. Yes.
Fair enough. Why does that pay per view speak to you so much?
I used to love Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler was my favorite wrestler, like non-female wrestler. Dolph Ziggler was my favorite when I was growing up. So to see him get that shine, I was so excited. I was crying. I was so happy, and I didn't know who Sting was, but I saw him and I was like, "This guy is so cool." So I googled him after.
Fair enough. Then, because you googled him, did you were you like, oh, I missed out on something, like not watching it when I did?
Me and um Me and Cass always have conversations like this because I don't. He always tries to get me to watch old WCW stuff. Like he's rewatching. He probably told you this. All of WCW Nitro
Yep.
episodes. Yeah,
For
he
those of you
definitely
that
was.
haven't seen, I've got an interview with Cassidy Haynes on my channel. Go check it out.
Yes.
Sorry,
Um.
had to plug while I was there.
No, go for it. I tried to give you the segue for it too. So perfect. Hit
Thank
it right
you.
off the
I
park.
appreciate
Uh.
that.
Whenever me and him talk, he always is watching WCW Nitro, and I'm like, pass. I really don't feel a need to watch it. Like I feel like I'll watch all of the big stuff, the stuff that I need to in order to like fill the gaps in my wrestling knowledge. Besides that, I'm not gonna sit and watch a bunch of WCW Nitro because I know he wouldn't sit and watch a bunch of Divas era 2000 stuff, and I wouldn't force him to do that. So I feel like that's only fair.
Do you think, and I completely understand what you're saying, do you think you don't watch Nitros because almost like you know how they end, sort of thing. You know that eventually they go out of business.
I mean, that, but also I feel like people always tell me that, like, you're not a real wrestling fan unless you know this. Especially since I'm a female, I always deal with that. Oh, you don't know Sting's match from
I don't
blah
swear
blah
on my
blah.
I don't swear on my channel, but that is bullshit.
Yeah, I that's one of the main reasons I feel like I protested watching that stuff, is because I always felt like people always told me to do something, and I also don't like to be told what to do.
Okay. But then if you've gone back and watched something, what is if you have back and watched any WCW, what is something that you're like, okay, this is cool.
Chris Jericho and the cruiserweight stuff. I always like the cruiserweight stuff. I always tell Cassidy that if I was gonna watch WCW, it would be for cruiserweights.
Fair enough. So going back to generic questions, favorite superstar of all time.
AJ Lee.
Okay. I feel like I'm prefacing each question the same way, but why? Just to elaborate, please.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm praying for an AJ comeback right now. Punk is back. I think AJ can come back too. Give me Cole and Britt versus AJ and Punk. My life would be made.
Oh, that sounds fun.
But why? She was the first Divas champion that I ever saw. And I could tell by her promo ability, her wrestling ability. I was like, this girl is a star. When she left, I was so heartbroken. But she's definitely always been a trailblazer for me. I feel like she doesn't even get enough credit for all of the work that she did in the women's division. So
If she was to come, actually, I'll put it this way: if AJ was to debut in AEW as a complete unknown from the Indies, do you think she would get more respect than maybe she got in WWE during her run?
I honestly think she would, especially with the caliber of the women's wrestling landscape now. I feel like people would be able to respect her a whole lot more.
Okay. So, and then favorite superstar currently.
Bianca Belair,
Hmm?
definitely. I've been going to war for Bianca on Twitter recently too, ever since the whole Royal Rumble thing and they just let it play out from SummerSlam. She
Ooh.
completely,
Ooh.
I la 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 la. Whenever I hear SummerSlam, no, thank you. But she completely represents who I am as a person. I got a cameo from her at the beginning of quarantine, and I
Oh,
feel like it
really?
completely changed my life. She told me I inspired her, and
Oh,
I literally
wow.
started crying. Like, I inspired Bianca Belair, and I will never forget that. And my goal one day is to eventually interview her, and I'm gonna remind her of the moment, and we're gonna cry together.
I'd love to see that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this isn't a question I normally ask, but we've talked a lot about it. If I said to you, look, you can only achieve one of the goals on your list, taking out the personal stuff, obviously,
Mhm.
one of your wrestling goals, what is the one that you're like, before I quote unquote retire, because we know how wrestling retirements work, uh, what is the one goal that you're like, on the wall that you're like, that has got to be achieved?
This isn't on the wall because it'll be on the wall next year, but I want to manage a wrestler on national TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who, if you could pick a wrestler to currently manage current wrestling, who would it be?
If I'm gonna go big, I'll go Naomi. If
Ooh.
I'm gonna go ROH vibes or Impact, Tasha Steeles. I love Tasha.
I'm getting Jade Cargill vibes from you, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god, I would kill that too. Me and Jade would be besties. I feel like I'm gonna meet her one day and we're gonna like realize we're soulmates. She's gonna
Hmm.
adopt me as her daughter. It'll be great.
I'd full on, like, I don't know why, but I could imagine you almost being like the Heyman to her Lesnar.
Oh my god, I would love that. That would be my dream come true. Jade Cargill. I know you just talked to Grapsity. If you need a manager, if you want to replace Smart Mark Sterling, you let me know. You give me a call.
You know what? I'm gonna take that as a clip and put it
Okay.
on Twitter and just
Okay.
be like, please.
Yeah. I feel like we can get some steam going on that too. I'll
Hmm.
retweet it. We'll send it to some people. We can try to make something happen.
Yeah, I'd love to see that personally. So, what's the other generic question? Favorite theme song currently in wrestling?
Ooh, I listen to Jamie Hayter's theme song a lot, actually. That it's like a blaring noise. It's called like Indignation.
Mm-hmm.
I really like Jamie's theme. Another theme that I really enjoy is Bianca's theme as well. Maybe it's because I love Bianca, but that theme always gets me. I hope they don't change it because they've been changing a lot of themes recently in WWE. So
Is
I
it a
really hope.
CFO one?
I honestly don't know, and I really don't want to find out. I'm just gonna act like it's not, so I can protect my mind. Because if it is, I'm gonna lose it.
If it is,
Good luck.
you're buggered, sort of thing. And if it isn't, you're all good. I'll put it that
Yes.
way. So, favorite theme song of all time?
Ooh, of all time, Lita's.
Ooh,
Lita, yeah. I love the intro chords. Like when it hit at the Royal Rumble, I was so excited too. Another great shout I think is Michelle McCool and Layla's when they used to be Laycool. That
oh well,
you're
I'm not gonna sing it
nothing.
because I don't want my channel taken down, but I know what you mean.
Yes, yeah. I loved Michelle McCool too. So it was great to see her back.
As someone that didn't, have you gone back and like watched her run? Because obviously you didn't see it in your wrestling fandom to begin with.
Yeah, basically if it's like 2008 and up Divas division, I think I've watched all of it. Honestly, I think I've consumed all of the content. Lita, I've gone back and watched like bits and pieces. Same thing for Trish Stratus. I'm trying to get more as I go, and like, but the Peacock is horrible for if you're trying to do research on wrestling. That
I'm so
setup
glad I'm in
horrendous.
the UK.
Oh my god, it's horrible. It's a nightmare.
This is a good time. Oh wait, no, it's not. So I can't do that. I was about to do one of those. This is a good time to let you know my video is sponsored by ha ha ha. But sadly, it's not.
That would be a great VPN sponsorship right there.
I know, right? So, favorite match, favorite theme song, favorite superstar, favorite storyline currently in wrestling.
Hmm.
Bearing in mind that this won't air for a few months because it's in the.
Mm-hmm. Um, I will go Thunder Rosa Britt Baker.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. If it happens at Revolution, Double or Nothing, we'll see how it goes. But I think we end up with Thunder Rosa as champion, and I'm really, really excited to see that.
I was thinking about this the other day because they can't have a normal match after they're
Oh no.
non-sanctioned. Cage match?
Yeah, I heard cage match. Somebody told me cage match, and I was like, I like the sound of that. So I can get behind a cage
I don't
match.
know. I don't know where I heard that from, and I don't want to take credit, but I'm like, yeah, cage match would be fun.
I would also like to see in their feud a women's blood and guts match as well. Get a bunch of women on screen and do a blood and guts match.
I just had to remember what a blood and guts match was because,
War
as we
games.
said,
Just
my
war
memory
games.
doesn't work very well. But then I
Yeah.
remembered, oh yeah, the one where Christian, the spot. I don't want to say it was bungled, but like the ending didn't look so good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's just war games in AEW.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see that, to be honest.
Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, because I want to be very respectful of your time, because you're a busy lady. The question I end all my interviews on is with YouTube, with podcasting, with social media in general, we're all sort of going to live forever in some ways. So, what is the one video that you're like to people? Don't go back and watch that. I've grown a lot as a presenter. All my opinions have changed on that since then. And then, what is the one that you're like, if you want to know my body of work, go check that out?
Okay. I want to do the good one first because I'm so,
Okay.
so, so proud of this. And I think it's my best work I've done. It was on the Distraction channel. It was an AEW Dynamite preview show. And I did a power rankings bit. And I ranked all of the cute guys from AEW, WWE, and I think we did Impact too. It was horrendous, but it was hilariously funny. I
Was it
think that was
so
my
bad it's good sort of thing?
yeah, it was really embarrassing, but it was some great comedy work on my part. And I also have some really good opinions in there as well. It wasn't like I was just making jokes the whole time. One thing I would not like for people to watch is the first show I did with Body Slam. It was a SmackDown and Rampage review show, and we went for 3 hours, I think. Don't
Mm-hmm.
watch that. That was not good. That was my first ever real podcast, and I was like, it was shooting on my bed. I was on my phone recording. It was not a positive experience. I'm a lot more experienced now.
Fair enough. So as we wrap this up, where can the good people find you, Nicole?
Yes, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Jaychel Nicole. I'm always posting and updating on the shows that I'm doing, my projects, Wrestling with Whiteness, that is launching during Black History Month, ADH Divas, Demo Divas, any other cool projects. I might be working with some new media outlets pretty soon, so there will be updates on that as well. Any cool interviews, all that good stuff is on my Twitter at Jaychel Nicole, JayChelNicole.
It's well worth doing, guys. In my opinion, in the next 10 years, probably someone very big in the wrestling media.
Thank you so much.
So if you guys like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe to Tom Talks Rubbish, help the channel grow. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talks Rubbish, and I will see you in the next one. Bye. Bye.